Ever since Thucydides, who was sort of the first scientist ever, we think that decline is dangerous because it's the decline of Sparta and the rise of Athens that caused the Peloponnesian War. And so that's been sort of the conventional wisdom for thousands of years. My co-author, Paul McDonald, and I found that the results were the reverse of what we expected, that in fact decline is one of the biggest causes of peace, and that great powers are very cautious when they're in periods of decline, and rising powers are very cautious about declining powers in those periods. I study international security, and specifically how great powers deal with power shifts. The conventional wisdom is that when you're falling, you get nervous because someone else is taking your place, and when they get more powerful, they can use that power as a lever to do things to you that you don't like. So before they get powerful, you should fight them. So you would expect that great powers that are in a declining position become more aggressive. They're more likely to escalate disputes, start disputes. So the first thing we wanted to check was, how do states behave in disputes? And there's a big data set on this called the Militarized Interstate Dispute Data Set. And it looks at all things short of war and including war. And we found that when great powers are declining compared to baseline, they're less likely to initiate and escalate disputes. So that was very surprising. We didn't expect to see that, but when we got inside the cases and looked at the histories, trying to control for other factors, it turns out that states were very aware of their declining power, and they knew that if they started something, it would end badly for them. And states that weren't aware and did start things, like Tsar Nicholas II in Russia in 1905, he starts the Russo-Japanese War, very quickly find that revolution is on their doorstep, and they need to pull back and be much more prudent and cautious than they had been. When we talk about decline, it's mostly economic decline. We look at GDP because it's the sturdiest, least controversial measure of power over more than a century. And we also look at other things that show state behavior, like military expenditures or diplomatic portfolio, but we don't want to confuse causes and effects, so we have to separate those two things. One of the, I think, most useful things about this project is it gives us baseline expectations for how states would behave in a particular circumstance. States who fall at particular rates behave in particular ways. The most common response to great power decline is retrenchment. It's purposefully pulling back your commitments and refit and refuel for another round of competition. We think that the United States is in a moment of decline relative to China, but we don't think that is destiny. Retrenching for a while allows the United States to bend its growth trajectory up and avoid costly fights on the periphery over non-vital things. It has more important fish to fry. Notre Dame is a fantastic environment because the Notre Dame International Security Center has a critical mass of people studying grand strategy, but that's within the political science department that gives you this great audience to try and test your ideas, and people coming from different approaches to make your ideas better.